to decide whether the government has overstepped. What could be more coercive than to say the easy way or the hard way? And I think I have to draw a parallel here as well. Donald Trump and his administration are making similar moves, have made similar moves. Yes, certainly focused on the media, but also focused on American universities, also focused on the largest law firms in the country. And essentially, the deal they've been offered has been exactly the same, easy way or hard way. And by the way, these are mostly private entities that we're talking about. And when they look at the bottom line, the easy way is we pay off, we pay a settlement, we fire somebody, it costs us whatever, $10 million, $16 million. We avoid a political fight, we avoid a costly legal battle. You can understand, I'm not saying, I'm not excusing it, but you can understand why a rational, bottom line focused private entity would choose the easy way. The hard way is you go into court, you fight, maybe you win, maybe you don't, you make an enemy in the White House. But I do want to say this, those who have chosen the hard way, a handful of law firms who have challenged this, Harvard and other universities who challenge this, they're undefeated in the courts. The courts understand that all of this violates the First Amendment. That's why Trump has lost every time someone has stood up against him and gone into court on one of these types of issues.
Yeah, but he's been touting these settlements as he did the one with ABC News on his way here to the UK. Ellie Honig, Brian Stelter. Obviously, Brian, if you hear anything from Jimmy Kimmel or ABC, we'll have you back on this hour. Also joining us on this breaking news, Democratic Congressman of Maryland, Jamie Raskin. And sir, obviously we were having you on to talk about an entirely different subject, but given this news, do you agree with what Ellie said there, that comments like that we hear from the FCC chair are, as Ellie put it, textbook coercion?
Well, it's absolute corruption of government, and it's absolute violation of the free speech rights of the people and of the media. And this is really taking us back to the days of King George, where it was a crime to insult the president. They didn't like what Jimmy Kimmel said about Donald Trump. All he really did was show everybody what Trump's reaction was to being asked how he was faring, and he was immediately talking about reconstruction of the ballroom. But in any event, he was offended by that. That was a crime in Great Britain to insult the dignity of the king. The king was seen to have the authority of God behind him. So it was an insult of God. It was called lèse majesté. So basically, you insult the president, and he uses the full power of the federal government, the Federal Communications Commission, to threaten everything you want to do with your business and all your broadcast licenses unless you pay him off through the various lawsuits that he has filed, the sham lawsuits he's filed against you, or you get rid of the people who dare to offend the king. And this is a very dangerous moment for American constitutional democracy. He has sued ABC, CBS, NBC, Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, you name it. And he, for billions of dollars, and he shakes them down for millions of dollars. And more importantly, he gets his way with how they are going to report the news or express their opinions. And you've got a chair of the FCC who's acting like a communist commissar.
Well, Congressman, we actually just heard from Brendan Carr, the chair of the FCC, moments ago. He's on Fox talking about this announcement. I want you to listen to what the FCC chair had to say.
President Trump ran directly at these legacy broadcast outlets, and he exposed them to these market forces. And a lot of these affiliate groups said, to your point, we're tired of carrying this stuff. Late night shows, something's gone seriously awry there. They went from going for applause, from laugh lines to applause lines. They went from being court jesters that would make fun of everybody in power to being court clerics and enforcing a very narrow political ideology. And Nexstar, as you noted, stood up and said, look, we have the license, and we don't want to run this anymore. We don't think it serves the interest of our community. Sinclair did the same thing. So there's more work to go, but I'm very glad to see that America's broadcasters are standing up to serve the interests of their community. We don't just have this progressive foie gras coming out from New York and Hollywood.
What's your reaction to those comments?
It was not remotely market forces. The market was operating before. It was pure government coercion and threats from Brendan Carr and from Donald Trump, and the browbeating of corporations who need the FCC's approval for various broadcast licenses and so on to go and do this. And the second thing is, the guy obviously understands nothing about the First Amendment because he is openly broadcasting the fact that this was what we call under the First Amendment viewpoint discrimination. He doesn't like what they're saying. He doesn't like the point of view that they're representing, and power of the government to squelch their speech.
If someone is watching right now and listening to this, and they heard what we play, just Jimmy Kimmel's in his own words on Monday night, and they say, well, those comments were distasteful and maybe he shouldn't have this position, what would you say to that person about the call that ABC has made here, if they believe it's just a company, an individual company making this call on their own?
Okay, first of all, Jimmy Kimmel was obviously punished, and they went after ABC because they simply exposed what Donald Trump said when they asked how he was faring. So they insulted the dignity of the President King just by showing how deeply he felt about the situation. Let's leave it at that. So it didn't seem remotely distasteful for me. But in any event, under the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, you have the right to engage in speech that is distasteful and offensive and disagreeable to other people. If you don't, we don't have a First Amendment because everybody is offended by, somebody's offended by MSNBC, somebody's offended by Fox News, somebody's offended by CNN. That's fine. You can turn it off if you don't like it. But you don't get to go around as the government and police other people's speech. I mean, understand, if we go down this road, and it seems like this is where we are destroying the freedom of expression in America. And these late-night talk show hosts and whatever TV networks have the courage and the backbone to do it have got to fight the FCC and fight Donald Trump's attempt to clamp down on freedom of speech. This is like the intolerable acts by King George in the 18th century. These are intolerable violations of the rights of the freedom of press and the freedom of speech.
I want to ask about some oversight that happened on Capitol Hill today, but just on this, does Congress have oversight of what happened here? Do you believe there's anything that Congress should do here?
Well, absolutely. And I hope we can find enough Republicans. We would only need a handful to understand and to declare that, no, we are not going to accept FCC control over private media entities in America. We are not going to accept the FCC trying to dictate what speech the people can hear. We're going to let the real market decide, not the phony market, which is just governmental coercion through the FCC. So yes, and that's why we need to take back the Congress. Forgive me for striking a political note on Constitution Day, but unless we get Republicans to come over and join us in a common alliance for the Constitution, the way that Liz Cheney did, the way Adam Kinzinger did, the way Mitt Romney did, then all of the burden is going to have to be on the Democratic Party to turn this around. But it's a very dangerous moment for those who believe in the Bill of Rights.
Well, and none of them are in Congress anymore, I should note. But on that front, you questioned the FBI Director Kash Patel today alongside other Republicans and Democrats on the Epstein files. What was your takeaway from what you heard from Kash Patel?
Well, first of all, I was cheered that Kash Patel actually said that he denounced political violence across the board. Some of our right-wing MAGA colleagues could only bring themselves to denounce political violence on the left, which is, of course, much less, if you look at the ADL report, for example, than political violence on the right. But in any event, it shouldn't be some kind of game of counting wins and losses on both sides. We should denounce it across the board, and he did. But having said that, he was speaking complete gobbledygook when it came to the Epstein files. I showed him numerous cases where he said before they got into office that the Epstein files should be released in their entirety, and it is completely up to the director of the FBI. It's completely within their control. And at one point, he's taunting the FBI. He's taunting the Republicans in Congress. He says, pull up your big boy pants and show us who the pederasts are. And so I said to him that he's got to take his own advice now. He is the director of the FBI. Pull up your big boy pants and show us who the pederasts are. Just disclose the files so we can understand the full magnitude and scope of the international child sex trafficking ring that was being run by Epstein and Maxwell and others. It came out today that there were 4 banks who reported more than $1.5 billion in suspicious activity reports with respect to the whole Epstein ring. And we moved to subpoena them to come in. Jamie Dimon said he would have no problem complying with that. But the Republicans, except for the Honorable Representative Massey from Kentucky, voted not to subpoena them, but all the Democrats voted to subpoena them. And I'm very proud of the constitutional patriots on the House Judiciary Committee and what they did today.
Congressman Jamie Raskin, thank you for your time tonight. Up next here for us, we are seeing